Here's a rather controversial question. Should parents be blamed for their children's misbehaviors? If you're out and you notice a child screaming and pushing and basically being a brat, what do you think to yourself? Do you think, oh, what a difficult child, the poor parents? Or do you think, oh, it's definitely a sign of bad parenting? How true is that exactly? Is it really that our kids misbehaving is a sign of our bad parenting? Or is it just that their challenging behavior makes us as parents look bad? In this video, we're going to discuss whether or not parents should be held accountable for the wrong behaviors of their children, whose fault it is, and what should we do about it. Before we dive into the topic though, do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more informative parenting videos like this. This debate has been long ongoing and it will continue going on for as long as there are parents and children. We live in a society filled with parent blamers. If a tragedy took place that involved a child, people are all too quick to determine that it was the parent's fault. If a child behaves in an unacceptable or immoral way, it's always due to bad parenting. But is it? As parents, we all want our kids to grow up to become well-rounded, well-adjusted individuals in life. That's why we pore over parenting self-help books and surf through parenting forums. But most parents also seem to think that if we do A plus B plus C, then we'll hit this magic formula and our kids will become awesome adults, automatically. But it doesn't quite work that way, does it? What if you do all the right things and your child still does things you don't want them to? Are you the one to blame for that? Let's consider the facts. Are you raising your child in a vacuum? Are you the only influence in their lives? Or are they pretty much normal kids that live in the real world? Besides parental involvement, are we simply going to ignore peer influence, school influence, media influence, cultural influence? There have been thousands of studies that have followed 14 million twin pairs in 39 different countries. And guess what the outcome of those studies is? The result shows that while genes do influence who children become, genes don't explain everything. Environment matters too, but it's not enough to shape children growing up in the same home to be more alike. Psychiatrists and therapists see this every day as well. When families approach them for help with one of their children who might be seriously misbehaving, they notice that those very same families frequently have other children who are actually incredibly well behaved. So how can we explain that? Same parents, but different kids. The same parents can also shape different children in different ways even through the same event. For example, when parents divorce, one child might be completely devastated, while the other finds it a relief. The fact is that no two kids are alike, even if they have the same parents and grow up in the same environment. So how can parents be expected to take 100% of the blame when they can't even affect their kids in the same way? When our kids were babies, sure, we were their entire world. That means, good or bad, we were 100% responsible for them. But as they grew up and started learning things like independence and responsibility, at some point we have to let go and realize that we are no longer 100% responsible for them anymore. We simply can't be. Learning from life lessons is how we grow mentally and emotionally. Allowing our children to make their own mistakes, take responsibility for them, and learn from the consequences of those mistakes is a rite of passage for every parent. It's not easy, but it's something we need to do. We cannot keep taking the blame on behalf of our kids. When we as parents say things like, "Oh, if only I did this better, they wouldn't do that bad behavior," it gives the child a message that they're not responsible for their behavior, like it's not a choice, but something completely out of their control. This is very dangerous because it can lead to a pattern of forever avoiding responsibility and constantly pushing blame to external factors so long as it isn't them. When they grow up, it will most likely be the government's fault, the weather's fault, the system's fault, their spouse's fault, and even their own children's fault, but not theirs. When you blame yourself as a parent, you're only making yourself feel unnecessarily awful, and you're setting up your child for utter failure in life. A better approach is to hold your child accountable. This will teach them that they are the ones who are ultimately in charge of their own decisions, choices, actions, behavior, and consequences. Here are 5 ways to teach your children to hold themselves accountable. Number 1, make sure you give them the right foundation. As long as your child has been taught what is right and wrong, what is acceptable and what isn't, what is to be encouraged and what is to be avoided, then they have the educational foundation they need to make their own informed choices. If you teach your children to be polite and teach them to say please and thank you, and they are still rude to others, of course, first of all, you should ask yourself if there is anything else you can do. Perhaps you can teach the lesson of politeness and good manners in a different way that can really reach your child. If you've already taught them all the good manners in the world and they are still being rude to others, this is going to be on them, not you. Number 2, make sure they receive the consequences. You've taught them everything and they are still misbehaving. At this point, it is clear that their behavior is their choice, and they need to accept the consequences for those choices, whatever you mete out at home. Saving your child from punishment or discipline will only give them the signal that their misbehavior is not taken seriously and that they do not need to be held accountable for it. This will only make things worse. Your child needs to know that their behavior is wrong and that it will be met with discipline. If you let them get away with misbehavior so often, whenever you do discipline them, it's not going to work because you haven't been consistent at all. Number 3, set the example of holding yourself responsible. You are always going to be your child's best role model. If you show them that you are able to take responsibility for mistakes that you make throughout your life, whether it's at work, at home, or with other family members, your kids will realize how important it is and be inspired to do the same. If a situation arises where they have misbehaved, it's a good opportunity to have an honest conversation with your child. If you indeed had a part to play in the situation, point out your mistake and then point out theirs. Show them what it's like to step forward and take responsibility for your own mistakes, and promise that you'll try not to do it again. You can even work on an action plan to prevent future occurrences and encourage your child to do the same thing. Number 4, focus on the behavior, not the child. Children hate being blamed for things because it makes it seem like they're a bad child. It's up to us to make sure they understand that that isn't true at all. Praise your child for their strengths often, and assure them that one bad action does not rule out the rest of them completely. Focusing on the behavior shows them that they are accepted, but that their wrong behavior is not. Once they realize this, they may be more willing to accept responsibility and make changes. Number 5, tell them how proud you are of them when they take responsibility. Taking responsibility as a child is a huge deal and should be met with a huge deal of celebration and praise. When your child takes responsibility for small mistakes and you're proud of them for doing so, they'll be more encouraged to do the same for bigger mistakes. What we need to do is create an environment where our children feel like we as parents are here to be their cheerleaders and cheer them on whenever they're on the right path, and not make them feel even more down when they've made any mistakes. So yes, sure, our responsibilities as parents are huge when it comes to how our children turn out. We have to do the best we can to shape our children's development at home. We should focus on building a strong relationship with them, building up their life skills and abilities, and teaching them how to be a good person. But we also have to realize that while we have influence, we don't have control over what our kids do or how they are going to grow up. All we can do is appreciate the moments we still have with them now as kids, teach them all we can, and slowly let go. We've come to the end of our video, and we hope you've learned to not always blame yourself as a parent for your children's mistakes. What are some ways that you help your kids hold themselves accountable? Do share your parenting tips and tricks in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Before you go, do share this video with your parenting friends and family too. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more parenting videos like this. See you in the next video!